Boom, hello and welcome to the Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast, Season 2.
With your host, Byron Rodgers. This podcast is dedicated to the executive protection practitioner, the private security professional. In this podcast, we're going to talk about the mental, emotional, psychological, physiological fitness that goes into being an efficient and effective executive protection agent. Whether you're in law enforcement, whether you're a mom that's looking at how to protect her children, or a father that's focused on how to protect his family, I believe this podcast has something for all of you. We might even get into some tales from the crypts of true Hollywood stories from time to time. I'm doing this podcast because I feel the reality of this job is simple. If you really want to be good at executive protection, it's more than just a job. It really is a lifestyle. And those of you who've been in the game for any serious amount of time, you already know what I'm saying is true. So if that sounds interesting to you, enjoy the show. Out.
Boom, what's up, you guys? Byron Rodgers here with another episode of the Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast. And I've got an awesome guest today, someone I've been meaning to get on the show for like almost a year, it feels like. And so I'm excited to finally get to execute on that. Chris, Storey's here with me. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, Byron. I got boomed. I kind of duck in there, but yeah, it's good to finally catch up. It was funny. I think we chased you for our podcast, and then scheduling thing, and I think it was a year 2020 kind of flew by in a flash.
Yeah, 2020's been moving. 2020's had us all busy, man. It's been crazy. There's so many like awesome people in our industry that I am meaning to circle back around and get, not even circle back around, just get an interview with and spend some time with and stuff like that. I was worried when I started this project, like, well, geez, I'll probably run out of folks to interview, pretty quickly. A couple people mentioned that to me, but it has not been the case.
So. Dude, there's no shortage of awesome people in the industry to interview, whether they're just entering it or whether they've been here for a while or whatever the case is. I mean, we've had the same issue, right? You're like, hey, I want to talk to you. And then they have, you go through whatever your interview is. And then they have like just more stories. And you're like, we got to circle back. But then you find, there's 100 other people with awesome stories as well. It's really hard to determine like who you're going to talk to,
Yeah. Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. And then, doing it and working. So it's been good, man. It's been an awesome project. And I was really glad to see you guys start your podcast, Conversations in Close Protection, as well, man. I like the more information and the more good stuff we can get out. I think it just solidifies our industry. It helps define our industry. It just does nothing but good stuff. Gets information out for people to be better at what we do. Yeah. I was really excited to see that, man. That's good stuff.
Well, the cool thing is that I know we've had some of the same guests, right? But we don't go over the same questions because, you have a different perspective. We have different perspectives, and the guests get to speak to the close protection community, and everybody learns, right? I mean, even those folks learn or they remember, right? Man, I haven't talked about the beginning of my career, the close protection portion of my career in so long, and it becomes nostalgic. So we all learn from it. So I'm glad, and there's plenty of space in the industry for everybody for a podcast. So I know there's some other folks in the industry doing podcasts as well.
Yeah, man, it's been good to see them like popping up, man. And a rising tide lifts all ships that are at sea, man. So get your boat out to sea, you guys, if you're thinking about getting a podcast, you're thinking about, it's I think it's less about like becoming Joe Rogan and just more about contributing to people, wherever they're at.
Yeah. I mean, we really focus. So first off, thank you. Thank you, Captain Positivity. Right. I mean, that's one of the, you're always, aside from throwing punches at the camera, you're always super positive. You're always super positive. So that's awesome. And then, there's just a lot of space, a lot of opportunity, and everybody thinks about, communicating about different items or things or people in the industry. And I think it, like you said, you're right. It helps professionalize all of us.
Heck yeah. Awesome. So with no further ado, you'd be better at it than me. Why don't you give us a little kind of background, what you've done, where you come from, all that stuff.
Right.
It's the whole like, hey bro, what's your background? I know they want, they all want to know. So I have to ask the question, even though it's always fun.
Dude, it's like the least favorite thing that I like to talk about is me. I used to instruct at a couple places, and I get yelled at because I was like, hey, like, can you introduce yourself? Like, yeah, my name's Chris. All right, let's get to the firing line. Like, awesome. And he's like, look, dude, you got to give a little relevance. And I'm like, well, they'll learn that when we get on the range,
Heck
so
yeah, that's what's up.
Anyways, my name is Chris Storey. I've been in the industry for a long time, as you can see from the gray, and that's a lot of that is from the industry. But I got my background. I first started in the military, I was in the Army as a counterintelligence agent. So I have a great appreciation for big picture and how do I fit into the big picture, and I have a great appreciation for using intelligence to support any operations, whether EP or business. I transitioned out of that into, well, as a counterintelligence agent, I went to the Ranger Regiment. Counterintelligence is supposed to be plain clothes and super sneaky, sneaking, or what is it? Peek and
snooping
sneak,
and pooping.
Sneaky peek, snooping and pooping.
Yeah.
I did that for a little bit, and then I kind of spent the rest of my career as a tactical guy. So I still in intelligence. So counterintelligence, was at the Ranger Regiment, and then left that, went to 519th MI, which is a famous military intelligence battalion. And then I went to F Company 51st long range surveillance. I was an ATL and a TL there, and then 10th Mountain. And then as I was getting out of the Army, I initially wanted to be in the Secret Service, and I didn't really have the education or and my eyesight disqualified me from that. So a guy by the name of Ron Ralph, he was kind of mentoring me at the time, and he said, hey, if you want to get into protection, there's this thing called executive protection. You don't have to be in the Secret Service. I was like, wow, that sounds awesome. How do I do that? And so I ended up pursuing a civilian school, and I went to, I took leave and did a school with Pete Dordow, a company called Potomac Group and Associates, way back. That company's been bought out several times. Anyways, I ended up doing that course, and I really never looked back. I probably got my first job or role in EP about 8 months later. At the same time, I was looking to be in law enforcement, and I said, well, I'll go make some money on this EP thing, and then I'll come back and go through the academy. And that never happened. That never happened. So I just kind of continued to do executive protection until 9/11. Went back in the Guard, did some force protection stuff, and then I tried to go to what I thought was the Super Bowl of protection, which was high risk. And so I did a non-state contract, then I did a state contract, then I went back to Blackwater as an executive protection, high risk and firearms and tactics instructor. And then I went back and deployed with State Department, and then went to a different program, and then started seeing the writing on the wall that I couldn't, I could continue to run and gun with some young folks, but I didn't really want to. So I finished my education and started looking at the corporate space. So I went to, did a lot of corporate consulting, and I think that was my home. I found my home when I first started, because it was a mix of EP and corporate consulting, like teaching people, basic security SOPs, basic security procedures. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed going into organization and then helping, basically you get to leave it better than you found it. Right. Okay. So I did that for a bit. When I stopped contracting, and then I got into the corporate space, did corporate security for a little bit, and then went back to contracting. Really contracting, consulting is probably a better term. And that's, okay. I consider myself a security consultant now, and I work for a couple of different companies as kind of a drop-in security consultant.
Nice.
Yeah. And I teach EP and CoPro and a bunch of other stuff. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Trying to keep up, Byron.
Dude,
got to stay busy.
Awesome, man. How many years did it take you to do all that trash? Like, what was that? Like 30 years? What is that? Like 25 years?
Yeah, I spent, like just under 14 years in the military. And then the rest of it was, so I started, it's almost been 20 plus years, man. 20 years in the private sector with a two-year break for law enforcement. I mean, excuse me, force protection. Yeah. Not in law enforcement.
Yeah, man, dude, you've been moving. That's what's up. That's awesome. You've gotten far, man. It's an honor to be able to talk with you. Well, I'll get into those other questions in a second, but man, that's a lot of stuff. There's all kinds of stuff I'm asking. Who would you say? Who would you say?
Go.
Yeah, I know, right? Who are you at your core, though? The bottom of the iceberg. Right,
that's a deep question.
The center of it.
Deep. Wow, you went deep real quick. Nice.
Yeah, man.
I would say Who am I at my core? Good question. I would say initially I try to be humble, and I try to be competent.
Heck yeah.
I would say those two things, because we're always learning, right? Regardless of whatever we say, and we can learn from everybody around us. And so I think at the core, I try to do that. And then that would be the professional side. And then on the personal side, I would say, this may or may not answer the question, but I've been called a lot of cool things, right? Ranger, acronyms for crazy stuff, state, Blackwater, blah, blah, blah. Right. But by far my most popular and favorite thing is dad, right? That's my favorite label. So I think, those three items would kind of, I would imagine, at least from my perspective, that's who I am at my core.
Heck yeah, man. Competent, humble, dad. That's awesome,
right.
Man. That's just good stuff, man. That's I love the humble and competent stuff as well. We know the dad is like the most amazing thing ever. Like, I don't even think, if you haven't experienced that, you just can't understand it.
Right.
You just will someday, hopefully. And the competence and humility, it's a very interesting thing to me, because I find like being a stronger person or being a more competent person, it's a double-edged sword. You have to be, I at least for me, I have to be very deliberate at making sure and ensuring that I'm very aware of my humility at the same time. So it's awesome that you kind of like fuse those two together, because, I think they walk hand in hand.
Well, so I agree, right? Because if you're competent, you can be seen by others as being competence breeds confidence, right? Which can seem as if you're arrogant. I don't know if you see my facial expression, but they're not like yours. Like I smile, hey, and it, it doesn't, maybe I got to be really smiling to make people feel comfortable. Right. So at that point, I have to
I remember when I first seen you at the Close Protection Conference, you walked in the room. We were about to do the shooting competition. You were like, yo, it smells like cargo pants in here. And I was like, but you have a serious aura to you, right? Because you're capable looking human, you're strong looking dude. Right. I was like, I can respect this guy off the bat. As long as he's not douchebag, I think we'll be cool.
Well, so it's funny. My friend Josh Burmeister will say, he goes, dude, he goes, the thing with you is that you've got a dry sense of humor and you're not like super expressive. So when you say, I love my children and I like cookies in the same, in the same sentence, like people don't really know where you're at. So you got to be like, I love my children. I like cookies. That's pretty funny.
Awesome. Oh, that's funny. So
come on, man. You promised me you wouldn't flex on me. Come on.
No, we were, yeah, man. So that's good stuff, man. I totally dig the connection that you made there. What would you say is your mission these days, as you're doing what you're doing, man? Like where's the trajectory of it all going?
Well, so I would say for the most part, the mission has been education, right?
Okay.
That's what we do. That's what we really do with and professionalization. So I would say, and this is kind of personal and business, essentially for the industry, which would be education through our podcast, right? Conversation, Close Protection, education through the International Protective Security Board and being a member on the board. And then education because, I don't want to be an instructor, but I tend to say, I happen to, it's like the mafia, right? They bring me back in, right? And I think that's a funny way, but it's a cop out really. Is that because if, I get a decision in the day, right? So, I enjoy, from my perspective, giving people who want to be in the industry the best possible education and the best possible start that they can possibly have so they can be successful, right? Because for too long, the industry has been like, oh, you don't know anything, well, you're a turd. Well, how is somebody supposed to find something out if we don't teach them, right? So, the rest of it is up to you. But if I can give you the best tools that I can possibly give you to be successful, then, you're the next generation. If you, not you personally, but, you as students, they're the next generation. If we don't set them up for success, then it's our failure, not theirs.
Heck Heck yeah. No, I agree 100%. It's the reason I started this podcast. It's the reason I do the stuff I'm doing with my school. It's like there was just nothing out there. It was like the Wild West, you know, like, even more so before I started. But even when I got started in 08, I was like, where do we even find information or do anything? Or, and then various levels of competency you see out in the field, and you still see it. Some details are like a pickup game of basketball, like guys just respond to an email and converge and try to accomplish a mission. Is like, man, how can we get information to everyone so that we can operate at a level that we can be respected like other professions, like accountants and lawyers, and even cops back when they used to be respected and things like that, before the media attacked.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why Chuck and I created Conversations Close Protection, is because for the most part, there is and has been a lot of entry or tactical level information, right? But where I think a lot of folks are essentially lacking is, what's that next level look like, right? How do we connect operational level? How do we connect, the leadership piece? How do you become a team leader? What should you be thinking about? How do you become a detail leader? How do you become an operations director? And so
when you get there, like, what do you do? Like,
right. So, you guys have probably heard, or, any of your listeners that happen to listen to us have heard me talk about, John Wick, right? We celebrate these, going to the range as the be all end all, but last time I checked, nobody's stacking bodies, right? So, and that really isn't part of the job description. So what else do we focus on? Now, some folks, when you get in the industry, that's what it's all about. But after you've kind of worked that through your system, you want to maybe learn or learn from other people's perspective. And really what we do on our podcast is we bring that perspective from senior people in the industry, and even from newer folks in the industry, as we've done a new practitioner series, so that they can give their perspective so other people can learn from that. I mean, our podcast really isn't about us. It's really about those people that we talk to, and so we really try to celebrate those folks who are doing great things in the industry and making impact and maybe aren't really heard of,
Yeah. No, I find that's one of the things I love too, is like, because someone said that I was like a self-proclaimed industry leader or something. And I'm sitting there like, hey man, I got a podcast where I elevate other people that are doing great in the industry. That's what I do. It's like, I'm like kind of trying to like, I'm fading into the background. I'm like, yo, let's check out this awesome dude who's like killing it. We can learn trash from him. Like, come to the event where you'll learn from all these awesome dudes that have done amazinger things, and not amazinger things.
That's a word.
Done,
That's a word.
Right. It is now, So I was like, look, man, it's kind of the beauty of the whole thing is being able to elevate those, because I've only been in this industry for since 2008. We're going on a couple years past 10. So I'm like, I'm young, man. I'm still getting my orientation, I'm still learning how to move up in certain areas and doing the owner operator thing with my business and all the stuff that comes with that. So it's an honor to even be able to have these conversations with some of these dudes.
Right. I agree. Well, I mean, so part of our problem as an industry is that we're super judgy, right? And
that's real.
There's something about glass houses and throwing stones and whatever. And it's really a clash of thought processes, because unless you take risks, you're not going to make a mistake. Right. And then sometimes, like, people don't intend to make mistakes. Right. That's why they call them mistakes. Right. It's one thing if you just kind of go off the deep end, but we'll judge immediately off a headline. Right. And it's easy as a keyboard commander to do that, but you got to understand context. And I think, having been on the receiving end of some of those judgments at times, and holding myself to a high standard of accountability, that can kind of wear on you, right? A little bit. So that you kind of be resilient and focus on that, and then work through those challenges and then continue to execute. The other thing is that if I was in contact with you, 6 years ago, so you're in the industry for 4 years, and we tend as humans to remember where you were back then, and not think that you've grown since then at all, and go, oh, he didn't know anything back then. What could he know? Right? How could he know anything now? Well, it's been 6 years. Like, hopefully we've grown, Some people don't, right? But for the most part, most people do. And I was talking to Will Geddes yesterday from the UK and from ICP, and he's saying the same things. Like, golly, we are super judgy. Like, man, you just hope that it gets accepted. But at the end of the day, you can't. What does Rogan say? Never read the comments. Right?
No,
just
that's real.
Just put it out, right? He goes, never read the comments, man. You never read the comments.
I honestly don't. There's certain topics I'll circle back around and like stack bodies on. Like when I like post something that's like, a black man can be anything he wants to be in life, and like all the other black people, like I have to get in firefights with black people for like a week. I'll come back around on one of those posts. But like generally, yeah, man, I do stay away from the comments. It's funny he says that.
Yeah.
And things get taken out of context a lot,
like a lot, right? Because nobody has the full picture. You just hear, and then it just goes like wildfire. It's crazy.
Man, and people eat it up. But then, I think the truth seekers and the people that are more realistic, like just people that have a more mature mindset, kind of see through it. Like someone took a snapshot of me posting a picture, like a complete fantasy cool guy photo of me using gear that I use in different aspects of life, but like mostly just things I'm sponsored for here, right? Like nothing to do with EP, nothing in the post to do with EP, just me being tactical cool guy.
Right.
Motivational article.
You got a long gun and you're on a surfboard and you're
exactly. Yeah, I'm riding on a Panda,
Yeah.
And the dude's like, do you guys do any of this in EP? And I'm like, bro, you cut off the whole article. Like it's just, and they were just stabbing me to death in that group.
Right.
And I came in there and said some things, but I was like, yeah, whatever. You just got to keep moving, and you keep making moves, and you keep moving forward.
Well, the other thing is that at the end of the day, if you were, whatever your article is about, like it's hard to capture leadership in a photo, right? In an action photo, right? I mean, and I think you've done a good job at balancing the fantasy, right? Which is, hey, no shit, there I was knee deep in freaking, name your 9mm shells and 454 Casull, right?
Grenade
downtown
pins.
Los Angeles. Yeah. And I think you do a great job at kind of blending the cool with the kind of the realistic and hey, here's my thing. Here's me jocked up in a suit coming out of a G6.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, that's badass. But then you kind of go deeper into it and say, and you don't really refer to that, but that's the hook essentially. Right. And people who don't get it are like, man, I need to get on that detail. You're like, no, you don't get it, bro.
Yeah, it's like, no,
that ain't the detail. That ain't the detail, man.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah. That's a great understanding. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Hey, I'll be honest with you. I hate it too.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, there's Byron. He's got his photos. He's really good at it. Right. And why do I hate it? Because that's not me, and I'm not good at that. Right.
Oh man.
I'm a fan hater. How about that?
I love that you
I appreciate it, right?
Yeah,
but that, I'm like, God. Between you and Aaron, I'm like, God, I wish I could do that.
Aaron does it good, man. Aaron has this like kind of like seedy, like high speed, like way of being cool, like cartelish.
And then this everywhere.
with the little eyes.
Sorry, I went too deep. Sorry, the eyes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Like,
that's
who even does that? Like, who comes up with that type of stuff?
Yep.
Good, man. That's
awesome. Both of you guys have done a really good job with marketing and branding and kind of and differentiation, and I think a couple things. Like I've said on our podcast with you and with and I didn't say it directly, right? But I think both you and Aaron make the industry cool, right? And I think that's what it needs, right? Because if not, it's a bunch of dudes with suits and their sticks up their ass, freaking standing like this.
Right. With Oakleys on and G-Shocks.
Right. And that's, I don't know, that might've been cool in the 70s or the 80s or the 90s, but that's not cool now. And especially with what we have. So, I think that both of you have done a lot for the industry to get new people in. It's interesting. I was talking to Christian the other day, and he was saying how many folks you get to your seminars, right? And he said, I was looking around, and he goes, I didn't know any of these people. Right? He knew a handful, but for the most part, like he had, a couple hundred people here. This was last year. Yeah. I didn't know any of them. And I'm like, to me, that's super important because we've got all these camps, all over the place, right? How do we connect?
Tribes.
Right. But how do we connect them under, one umbrella so that everybody gets to go, hey, here, I learned this from Byron, and I can go to Aaron, and now we can go to Chris and Chuck, and now we can go to, name your physical, in-person instructors. What does that look like? Right. So that's, you asked about the mission. Like, the mission to me is, how do we get all of those people under one umbrella? And then, it pans out globally, because I think there's as you said, and we talked about before, there's so many fantastic people in this industry doing fantastic things. Amazing. There's no reason that we shouldn't professionalize.
Heck yeah, 100%. That's good stuff, man. Yo, so this high risk protection that you did for a while, I know everybody's curious. I know there's people that are curious about it. What would you say about that experience? What kind of differences did you notice, around that and executive protection versus corporate protection and stuff like that?
Okay.
Man, what would you say?
So yes, I would say on some level it is a young person's game, just because it's very physical, and young is relative, right? Like, I think I got out of it when I was 42 or so. Yeah, 42. So, but again, as you look around, you're like, wow, there's a lot of young guys here, right? Yeah. And they do incredible jobs. Like, one of the things that I did when I was there, I was the deputy project manager for operations. So what that means is that I was managed operations for all of our details that were in Baghdad, and or oversaw all the operations, right, for Baghdad and the other areas. But for the most part, so it was like 1,200 people, right? 35 protective teams, including CAT teams and counter assault teams, tactical support teams, and PSD teams, and low profile teams. That sounds awesome.
Blackwater.
That's right, Blackwater, right? The 800-pound gorilla. Right?
Yeah, right. Heck yeah.
And apparently it's coming back, right? Blackwater's
really?
back, right? Yeah. So, I mean, they're
I know they're selling
and
bullets
some other things.
Yeah, they're doing some things.
But anyways, one of the things that I really learned over there was we had young people, 23, 24, 26, and older, of course, but that were responsible for 15-person teams, right? For the lives of people, to include their teams, right? To move people from point A to point B, set static security, wait for them to complete their mission, and then return them safely to home with zero losses, right, of principals, and at a high cost of lives for those contractors, right? But you had kids that were, or young men and women, 20, in their early 20s, executing these missions, right? And making decisions on the ground. And they were not like officers, as you might expect, but a lot of former enlisted saying, hey, here's my job, here's my role, I understand it, I'm professionals. And we learned that we needed to celebrate that level of leadership, specifically because as you look at it, it was just a fantastic level of responsibility. Right. And for some time you're like, oh, here's your $15 a day extra, right? Which is nothing for what you're responsible for. So celebrating that level of leadership and celebrating their expertise, and I think that was one of the biggest things that I learned over there. The second thing were the stakes, right? So like I led with early on in my intro was, for me, it was the Super Bowl of protection, right? So the difference between practicing on theory and then actually applying theory and seeing if it works or not, because you learn very, very quickly what works and what doesn't, right?
Right.
So it's a Super Bowl because you're in an environment where people are actively trying to kill you, and in that case, it wasn't really specific threat. Like, nobody's like, hey, if we go here, our principal is targeted by these people specifically. You just know that it's a 3-car motorcade or 4-car motorcade, likely it's going to be US, so hit it, Right. And that's a pretty interesting and challenging environment. And one of the most important things that we did because of that was, at least my mission there was to send people home on leave, right? So not fire them, but hey, get through your deployment, make sure you're professional, make sure you're trained, make sure your teams are trained, because the most important thing we do is send you back home to be with your family, so you can come back and do your job again. So I really enjoyed those things, taking care of people, focusing on leadership, and those are the biggest things that I learned out of that role.
Heck yeah. What about the the counter intel? role you played in that, just understanding that way of life. Is there anything that you utilize today? Any big takeaways from that, or anything that you would maybe pass on to protectors, things they could, should, or shouldn't do, or perspectives from that time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, my focus on intelligence supporting operations, that's what I learned out of that. And I think, what is the big picture? So as a lot of our folks probably come out of the infantry or squad level or team level, right? You know, that's where a lot of folks come out of. When you look at your overall mission, you probably see at the platoon level, maybe the company level, right? From my perspective, I got to see what the battalion's going to do or what the regiment's going to do and what that mission is. And that helped me, even as a team leader, a squad leader, or a CI guy, focus on what my overall role was within that, right? Because for me, it's like walking around like this versus pulling it out so you can really see how you know what impacts you and the value of intelligence and operations. And I think if people start to learn that, their world opens up, and they don't have to run into a wall like this all the time. That you can kind of see things coming at you, and then you see the support elements that can help you as well.
Awesome. So just getting that overall 100-foot view and being able to understand that, communicate that to all the guys down on the ground so that they can do their smaller pieces within that mission set, essentially.
Right. So if everybody knows what the big overall mission is, then we know, then we know overall
they can execute with authority.
What our job is. Exactly. And it's basically, we need to know what can hurt us and what can help us on a larger scale.
Yeah. And then they can make decisions. Like I always talk about with my team, you know, the guys start asking, can I do this? Can I do that? I'm like, look, man, I need to make you a decision maker, you know? So like, I'm going to arm you with my intent, with the direction we need to go. You're going to make mistakes, but I'd rather have to rein in a stallion than kick a mule in the, you know, behind, you know? So where that's kind of, and that's
absolutely, you
know, arming them with that information helps them be able to execute.
Yeah. I would say that the next piece would be, is planning, right? Okay. So being a LERS team leader, you plan let's say a 5-day mission, right? And you've got to memorize it, you know, and you setting up your courses of action, and you understand your planning in each phase. And you realize that, you know, a lot of people say, oh, no plan survives the first contact. And, you know, all these kind of crazy excuses to not have a plan.
Yeah. I was like, maybe that's a cop out sometimes, maybe,
right?
I don't know.
Right. Well, so it's true. No plan survives the first contact. Because why? Because the enemy gets a vote. However, the reason that we still continue to plan is that we're always trying to get back to the base, or at least the spine of the plan, because that's what we've told our support elements we're going to do. So if we have a different plan and we tell everybody we're going right, but we go left, everybody's looking for us on the right. So if we can't communicate that we've gone left, everybody continues to look for us on the right along that path of that, you know, primary, alternate, right, the pace, right? So those 4 levels of or layers of planning. So that's where we need to get back to, right? And if we can't do that, then we're lost. So the plan is for us to get back to at least have, you know, primary, alternate, contingency, emergency plans, so that if we go left, hey, if we're not on the right, then we're going to be on the left. So look for us there, right? So that's why planning becomes important.
Okay, 100%. Have a plan, man.
Yeah.
And have a plan to communicate when that plan changes and stuff.
You know? Super helpful.
Super. What would you say about Cove Pro, man? I know that's kind of one of the sexy things that a lot of guys have been trying to wrap their mind around. Are there any misconceptions or things people need to know about Cove Pro, since you be teaching it?
Yeah, I'd be teaching it. So
right. I've
taught it for, so I've done it, and then I've taught it for enablement advisors for a couple of years now. I'd say the biggest misconception and the biggest challenge that people have with it is that, am I doing protection or am I doing surveillance, right? Once people realize that they're not doing surveillance, that they're doing protection, it's a protective role. You're not kind of standing back and like watching what happens with their principal, but you're there to have a positive impact on a negative interaction. I think that's what people are able to kind of like go, oh, cool, I'm doing my protective role, but there's a couple things that I don't need to do. I'm not really focusing a whole lot on service for the principal, at least direct, right? Let me get your door for you, sir. Let me get this, or let me get that, or let me get you a table, right? Those things, because that defeats the purpose of being covert. But you find that it's a huge force multiplier for some protective teams, and it provides a level of comfort for clients that really don't want to see security, i.e., that face, right? Hang on, that neck right there, right? The thick neck, right? The whole thing, right? So the guy who looks like security. And I think that one of the misconceptions, exactly, right? One of the misconceptions is that you're hiding from your client, right? Which you're not. You're hiding your purpose, not necessarily your presence, because it'd be kind of hard for you and I to hide our presence, right? We have to be in the trash cans or something, right? So
literally.
So those three concepts are really what, it's security, not surveillance. You have to be close enough to provide a positive impact to a negative interaction, and you're hiding your purpose, not your presence. If people were to understand those three things, you're able to effectively conduct covert protection. One of the other misconceptions is I can just, if I have to wear a suit every day, and I pull my tie off, that's low profile or covert. It's more of an action and a mindset and a way of performing versus just what you're wearing, right? What you're wearing is part of it, but you got to kind of act the part as well.
Yeah, and be comfortable enough to be like, not security, dude.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Because as security people, it's that big C word, right? Control, right? We're control freaks, right? You just want to choke the crap out of everything because you control
where everyone's going, right? Like who's in the space,
exactly.
How close can I get,
Yeah. And that becomes challenging, right? That becomes challenging, so
yeah, man,
you really have to, you have to get away. I mean, because the control levels you have are what? Physical control, right? Arm's reach, visual, I see where you are, right. Auditory, I can call you, yell at you or give you commands, and then technical. In covert, you got to give up that physical piece at times, right? You got to be comfortable, and it's a lot of like reading your surroundings, understanding where you are, how do I fit in, all those things. So I think we do a really good job at preparing folks for that and helping them work within that.
Yeah, man. Awesome. I've been doing some deals with Aaron. Hopefully I can join you guys for one of your courses this next year and bang out a review and some things like that, man. I've been trying to get to that course for a year. It's just been slammed. I think it's about a week long.
Yeah, you kind of been pushing your own stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Heck yeah. So I'm looking forward to that for sure.
Yeah.
With regards to executive protection agents in the industry, and like looking at their own training pipelines, some companies put their guys through pipelines and keep guys current on various skills, but what would you suggest guys look at in terms of I don't know, maintaining skill sets, getting better? What types of courses should they look at over the course of, say, a 2-year pipeline to just stay in the game and stay good at the game?
Okay, good. That's a pretty good question. There's always this balance of like, is it 3 days of training for EP? Is it 7? Is it 9? Is it 11? Is it 13.5? What does 10 weeks give you?
Right.
And I think there's really no level of education that you could attain. I mean, that's the thing, is it's a continuing, evolving profession, right?
Yeah.
So oftentimes, we learn things that we forgot. We learn, and of course we got those two tracks, right? Hard skills and soft skills, which is, for those of us who are old enough, less filling and tastes great, right? Those old Bud Light commercials. Look, you're confused. So hard skills, essentially shoot, move, communicate, medicate, and mobility, right? So if you do those 5, those are your hard skills. Driving, at least every 2 years. Driving is probably one of the biggest investments people can make after they learn their executive protection skills, whatever they do, right? Because look at it, we're behind the wheel. Most everything that we do, you can use that every day, and it makes you a better driver. The shooting piece, like all those hard skills, you should come ingrained in you. Learn how to do executive protection, learn different ways to do things, learn the arts of advance, super helpful, right?
Right.
Because that's one of the three pillars of success in executive protection, which would be the advance, your planning, and your arrivals and departures, right? Those are the three pillars of success. You can do everything else, but if you don't do that, we miss the boat, you know?
It's gonna be a problem eventually.
Then beyond that, you look at the soft skills, right? And I think a lot of times we think of soft skills as only, you know, how do I communicate with somebody, or how do I show empathy or emotional intelligence, right? But our other soft skills I would consider advance, right? Advance is your soft skill. Threat assessment and threat management, those are soft skills. You know, those are the things that are going to set you apart from your peers who are just like, yeah, bro, I got it. You know, I'm a driver. Yeah, bro, I got it. I'm a this, you know, learn how to do a risk assessment, learn what that looks like, learn, you know, to identify risks, identify threats, human behavior, all those things. First 2 years, you'll be trained in those things, right? You won't be proficient. You'll just be trained, but we continue to develop those skills. And over time, like yourself, you'll be able to teach people how to do those things. You know, people say one of the best ways to learn to do something is to teach it. I mean, you know, teach your family, teach your friends, teach people, you know, how you do what you do, even in small chunks, and that'll make you a better protector.
Yeah, 100%. I think that kind of crosses over into that more than just a job. It's a lifestyle. It requires a lifestyle thing. Because I think one of the major things we should be doing as protectors is creating assets out of everyone we're around. You know, I've had multiple times, especially recently, but just in general, when, you know, I'm leaving the house for an op and I'm like, all right, time to leave the women and children at home. I hope you've invested in them so they can protect themselves while you go protect some other people, bro. You know what I mean?
Right.
Don't fail, you know, at that, you know, your first enterprise, you know.
And a lot of protectors, and I think myself included, sometimes we think of it as like, well, I'm good. I'm here. So you're good. We're good. Everybody's safe. Right. And I think sometimes we have to, you know, step back and actually assess our own skills, our own security, you know, do a personal, you know, risk and vulnerability threat assessment and say, okay, great. Where am I lacking at my home? Where am I lacking at my you know, in my surroundings? And just like you said, if it's just you, then, you know, it is a lifestyle, right? What does that look like? How do you live that life and then continue to develop yourself as a professional? Instead of just, you know, hey, going to the range, that's only one piece of it, right? A very, very, very tiny piece of it.
Tiny piece.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
It's cool. It's fun. It's cathartic. It's cool. You know, but
advances are not sexy, right?
No.
Learning cybersecurity, maybe not sexy, right? Hey, I'm cybersecuritying today, guys. You know, FYI, kind of hard to show you. I guess you could put a long gun over your back, and then you're in front of a keyboard, right? I mean, I guess you could do that. Right.
Yeah. That'd be a cool picture, eating some bacon while you're on the, you know, I don't know. No, that's good stuff, man. And the mecca of executive protection out there in Silicon Valley, man. I know you're moving around out there, moving and shaking and doing some big things out there as well. What would you say about that environment? You know, if you were going to give guys keys for survival out there.
Oh, okay.
What would you say about that, man? Like 101.
So I would say, first off, I would not necessarily call it the mecca.
Okay.
I would call it is definitely a concentrated environment, and it's definitely different.
Okay.
Just because of the high concentration of high net worth individuals, and it's definitely a very different lifestyle and area, and it could be challenging for folks to fit in.
Yeah, right? I've seen guys go out there, great dudes go out there and come right back and be like, nah, dude, not doing it. The culture, I'm not down with it. Like, I'll make less money out here and just be fine. That's fine.
And that's, I think that's the biggest thing. And if you could teach anybody anything, it would be, and I know it's hard, right? Because they pay a crap ton of money, right? Mm-hmm. But it's based on the area, right? So you're like, I'm making 200 grand a year, but my rent costs me $5,000 a month. So what are you making then? You know, because that's 60 grand a year in rent, right? Or a house payment. Yeah. So the biggest thing we say is that, and this is hard for new protectors, is you are hiring, they're screening you for the role, but you're screening them for the role as well, right? Mm-hmm. Is this an environment that I can work within? Is this, can I work with this person? Can I work with these people? Is this the type of protection that I want to provide? You have to, when everybody's like, oh, we're looking at you from a good fit, blah, blah, blah. You're doing the exact same thing for the organization. And one of the most powerful things that you can do is know yourself, know what environment that you're going to be successful in. And then it takes a lot when people drop all those zeros and stock in front of you. But don't set yourself up to fail by trying to fit in, you're a square peg or you're a round peg into a square hole, because it's not going to work. It's not going to work.
It's good advice, and it takes balls, man. I appreciate that. I mean, it's something that now at this place in my career, I'm definitely doing way more. When I interact with a client or any opportunity, it's like, is this a bed I can sleep in? Like, can I make this bed in a way that I'm like gonna actually be able to sleep in it and do my best here and thrive here? What's the culture like here, man? It's those things are big, and money legitimately will not, unless you have you're like on the spectrum for psychopathy pretty good, like money won't really sustain you long term. There's those other intangibles we're talking about, like start eating away. I've seen some good dudes, man, dudes I love and work with all the time, but I've seen them get paid and have the job everyone goes for and get brought in house, and they're like, nah. Right. Because of the things we're talking about.
And you look at them and you go, why would you walk away from that?
Right.
And they go, dude, nope, not my gig, dude, not my gig. So again, and I think that doesn't just, that is not just Silicon Valley, right? That's advice for anywhere, right? You have to make the choice. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to put, I think, as you said, bacon on the table, right?
Yeah, man.
But once you get to a position, and it's super empowering, right? If you don't have to take the role, you will sleep 1,000 times better by going, yep, I really appreciate it, but not a good fit. So it's important to understand that the interview is two-way, not just one way.
Yeah, that's huge, man. That's something I teach in my course as well.
Yeah, it's important.
It'll make all the difference long term,
That's gold. That's gold.
Yeah, 100%. Anything you've learned from this whole COVID-19 pandemic environment? What have you seen in the industry? Just hard left here while it's on my mind, like what are your takeaways from this whole thing?
I think the biggest thing is it doesn't matter what you have done. The biggest thing that COVID taught us is that if your EP program is only around travel, you're probably not doing it right.
Yeah.
Because if you
it's a major vulnerability,
right? If you look at what executive protection provides to an organization or your client, travel should only be a small portion of that, right?
Right. Exactly.
Now it's the most visible portion, i.e., like my iceberg back there, right? It's the most visible portion, but your program should be supported on multiple other levels, right? So that you're providing value to the organization other than just being seen as the guy that stands next to the principal, right?
Yeah.
Some executive, because, hey, we're not traveling. Oh, I guess we don't need our EP team. Whoa. Hang on a second. They do a lot more, right? It's kind of hard to kind of, what do they say? Shut that barn door before the horse gets out, right? I mean, hey, you're gone. So I think if there's one thing that has taught us is to two things. If it's one thing it's taught us, it's two things, right? That's pretty funny.
Right. I got your back, man. That's
two things.
Two things and one thing at the same time.
Taught us right. is to sell. Obviously, it just can't be about travel, right? Number one, and then number two, we have to continue to educate the client on what exactly we bring to the table, right? Because that value it becomes somewhat invaluable once they understand that that's the case, but we haven't done that. And so we have all these protectors that are kind of sitting on the sidelines going, hey, I can't wait to get back to travel. And I think, and a portion of that's just going to happen, right? That's just the way it is. But there are some folks who have been like, hey, no, they bring a lot more to the table than just travel. And then you get repurposed.
Right. So give value on multiple levels because it'll insulate you from any type of fallout that takes place in any one quadrant of how you're serving your client.
Correct. And then, and you have to be able to share what that value is to the client so they understand it. And you got to do that. You got to do that, before they're like, hey, by the way, layoffs are on Friday.
Yeah. That's an ongoing operational, like a deliverable that you have to be.
Right.
You have to be ahead of the game on that thing. You either proved it already or you haven't proved it in time, and what happens at that point.
Right.
So that's an ongoing thing. I hope y'all heard that. That last point right there is huge, man. That is huge. That's good stuff. And I've seen that play out on a number of the details I'm involved in. And areas where that is the case, the clients, have wanted more coverage during this time. And in the areas where that wasn't the case, everything's sleep. This is just now starting to wake up.
Right.
So that's great advice, man. That's good stuff. I'm glad we asked that question. Advice to guys wanting to come into executive protection from more militaristic or hardcore jobs and things like that.
Well, number one, it's a protective role. So if you need to kick doors, probably not this place for you, right, Terry? And come here,
Yeah.
because you have to be ready for it, right? I mean, it's not that. There's the same level of camaraderie, but you've got to shift gears to what the corporate space is doing, not the other way around. So I would say, regardless of how long you've been in, your job, your role, your function is to bring the value that you have. And being a veteran myself and having seen both sides, a lot of people have value. The thing with veterans, what they bring is usually at a young age, they've had some level of leadership. They've had vetted leadership training. They understand a lot of skills. They understand logistics. They understand administration at times, right? They understand accountability for people and equipment. All those are valuable in the corporate space. So you have to take accountability of your skills, not your, hey, I hit 48 doors or a day in this place, right? Which is awesome, but doesn't really apply to corporate.
Translate, yeah.
Right. So how do you translate the skills you do have to the corporate space, right? And take that inventory as you come in. The next thing is bring your experience to the situation. Don't try to make your experience or make the situation fit into your experience, right? So it's not the military. So you should bring the skills that you need and bring it to the situation. Don't try to make the situation fit into your experience where everything's a nail or everything's a hammer or everything. And we find that with law enforcement too, right? It's like, hey, I've been institutionalized, so I'm going to create it like it was, not like what it should be. And I think if you look at those two things, and don't have the expectation that it's going to be like it was, I think that can better prepare people to be successful in that space.
Heck yeah. No, and that's one of the things I see a lot of dudes that I would like right now go kick doors in with, but they have trouble transitioning because they're just still like almost wanting it to be like the good old days, or they're comparing everything to like, well, this isn't, cool or honorable because it doesn't resemble, what I come from. That's like, dude, you got to be able to gain that cultural equity here. So you got to be able to value the culture here. You got to be able to assimilate to a certain point, if you, and if it's totally countercultural to you, then you need to be able to sell it or sell that, sell that you're part of it, or you need to move.
Well, a lot of times we tend to equate, what we did, and that's like the coolest thing that we've done so far. Don't let my thought process would be that's a fantastic chapter, but you still have other chapters to write. So, and they're all going to be different, and you can fall back on that one, but 4 chapters later, after you've been out of the military, you still shouldn't be referring to yourself when somebody asks you, hey, what do you do? Well, I'm a Marine. Okay. Well, not like for 10 years, bro. Like, what's up? Be comfortable with where you are now, because that's what you do. I'm a protector, right? I'm a protector. I'm a, FB'er. I'm a Googler. I'm a GDBA or whatever, right?
100%.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's impactful as you're trying to shift gears, right? As you shift gears, it could be challenging to do so, because a lot of things that you get to do in the military are super cool.
Yeah. Heck yeah. No, 100%. And it can be intimidating to try to do better now, that burden of freedom is like, okay, well, geez, what am I going to do? How do I do something better?
Yeah. I like the way you put that, the burden of freedom. That's
man.
Yeah. Cause you don't really know how to be, free,
Yeah,
essentially.
I'm with it. It comes from Viktor Frankl, man. He's my favorite psychotherapist. He's my favorite psychotherapist. Basically, he founded a discipline called logotherapy, which is purpose-driven therapy. He
Okay.
survived Auschwitz and all that great stuff.
Great stuff.
Yeah, right. And it really crystallized this whole psychotherapeutic discipline of finding meaning and purpose in everything that brings you power, right? And he talks about having a statue of responsibility on the other side, on the West Coast, to balance out the statue of liberty, because liberty without responsibility always leads to death. Because we must learn how to take responsibility for actions, and there's weight that comes with that. And I think that weight, and this, I talk about this in my book, Finding Meaning After the Military, which has a lot to do with that mindset. I think that's what ultimately does kill a lot of veterans, and is one of the things that's plaguing our society in a lot of levels, is that lack of meaning, purpose.
Yeah, I mean, you got to find that next level of purpose. I think that impacts a lot of people. Is the camaraderie piece is one thing, but that mission is another, right? Where one day you're doing things that people brief the president on, and you can't translate that into anything. Okay, oh, that's awesome. That's a cool story, but how do we translate what you do down? I think a lot of folks struggle with that. And I'd also like to say your pursuit of education, which is awesome, right? Where we can talk about things other than executive protection, right? So it is a lifestyle, but you have to look at what happens outside that lifestyle. How can and part of that should be continuing education, on something that isn't, hard skills, is, something different. Like your passion, almost, I think your education, but your passion also is psychology, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, man. I mean, Renaissance man, there it is.
No, thank you, man. That's big, because and something on that too, I think people could find some value in, is the more you contribute and invest in yourself, the more you'll be able to contribute to just your client's experience with you, and their ability to respect you on multiple levels as a human, their ability to believe they have a competent, intelligent, valuable person, because you'll have that internal equity because you've been investing in yourself. So if you do have to open your mouth, you can make connections. One of the rubrics for intelligence is making connections over a larger expanse of things. You'll be able to make connections over a larger expanse of things. Your perspective is elevated as you continue investing in yourself on all these different topics. So you bring a lot more value, I think, to the job.
I would say that would be the same as your client, or for your client, right? Their perspective, you're elevating their perspective of you, because when people think, oh yeah, I know about executive protection, no problem. I know exactly what it is.
Right.
Well, they're just referring to when you go to Google and put in executive protection and click images, and there's that guy right there standing there by the plane or the boat or the car or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That's usually as far as their knowledge goes, right? Oh yeah, you're the guy that stands next to the lady, or you're the lady that stands next to that guy.
Right.
Once you start to have, intelligent conversations with people, they start to see you as more than just the person standing next to them, or the person that watches their children. And that there's a lot of value in that.
100%. Yeah, that's good stuff, man. Heck yeah. What kind of trait would you say, or specific traits would you say you see in guys and gals that go really far in the executive protection industry?
I would say the first one would be adaptability. That's probably the biggest thing, because obviously that includes, intelligence. But adaptability is probably the biggest trait that people need in the industry, so that you can go from the Silicon Valley area, and then you can go work in New York, right? Which are two opposite spectrums, right? Then you can go to Africa, and then you can go to South America, and be able to understand cultures. You can understand people. You can understand human behavior in each of those areas, and it's not one size fits all for you. I think adaptability, and then empathy, emotional intelligence, those would be the keys. But adaptability, if you're able to adapt, you usually have all of those other other attributes that can support you.
What about sub-second draw, convoy ops, what martial arts, hand to hand? What you know what I'm saying?
Well, all of those are super important, right? But the key part of that question was the folks who are going to go far in the industry, right?
Yeah, 100%.
The part is that you're like, hey, like for example, so I was talking to somebody else. He's like, hey man, I don't do technical stuff, and I go, well, look, I just asked you to connect I just asked you to connect the HDMI cable to the laptop. That's not technical, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just a body guy, bro. I don't do that. Well, you know, that's not going to last very long, right? So like we have to be adaptable. And one of the things that we've always said at Conversations Close Protection is all those hard skills, we shouldn't talk about those because the expectation is you should come with those, right? So your client thinks that you're John Wick. You don't have to freaking run around and tell them that you are.
Right.
You should tell them that you're way more faceted than that by your actions, right? So, you know, the sub-second draw, it's cool. Last time I heard about a guy, an EP guy in a gunfight was, you know, almost never.
Yeah, it's a long time ago, but yeah, no, that's the wisdom of it, man. And having all those other things is what you're going to use to demonstrate value every single day with your client. So if you don't have the empathy, the emotional intelligence, you want to protect somebody, you want to roll with somebody in real time at the speed of life, the speed of their life, like adaptability is 100% one of the highest skill sets. Is that everything changes. Your day to day after you listen to this podcast is probably not going to go the way you think it is. You know what I mean? Like, you know, we got our goals, we got the stuff the targets we want to hit today, but we'll see what happens, you know?
Yeah. That's why your to-do list never gets shorter.
Never gets to done, man.
That's right. That's right.
No, that's real stuff. And when the client wants you to go to that one place they went to last week on the way home, that's not on your plan, you just got to be able to roll with it, make it look easy, and you know, flow.
Yep. And that's we see from a lot of newer practitioners is that they get upset when they do in advance, and then you don't go there. Wait, let me ask you, did you get paid for that? Well, yeah. Right? So why are you upset about it? You know?
Exactly.
Well, the client didn't follow the route that we said that they said that they were gonna take. Okay.
And you still get, you know, I'm the exact same way, man. That's good. Yep. You're still going to get paid. We still got jobs. We're still good. Are you cold? Are you wet? Have you gotten to eat? All right, cool. Let's do this, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny.
It's good to go. Biggest lesson you've learned in the field? We're getting to our closing questions here.
Biggest lesson that I've learned is that while you can be competent, you still have to network, and you can't just focus on your job and just do this and hey, people will learn from a meritocracy that I'm really good at what I do. That doesn't work. You have to connect with other people. You have to be a human. You have to be human. You can't just nose to the grindstone. I'm just going to do my thing. It'll take care of itself, because it won't. And you have to, you know, what do you say? All ships rise, or
rise in time, right? All ships at sea.
Or it takes a village, right? Essentially, you can't be the Lone Ranger running around trying to do it by yourself. You have to connect with other people, and that's a way to success. But it's also a way for people to understand that, you know, how you look, it helps them not judge the book by the cover, if that makes sense, right? And that humanization of the protector is extremely important, you know, in trying to get your job done.
Man, that's so good. That's one of the major things, humanization of the protector. I think that might be the cover for this one.
Trademark, copyright, blah, blah,
yeah.
blah. Just kidding.
Right? And that's Chris Storey 2020. But yeah, man, no, that's big. It's one of the major things I teach in my course too. You know, it's how to widen the sphere of relationships that's going to feed your success over the course of your career. You know, always selling security, always marketing, always making connections with folks that will help you have a successful career. It's an ongoing thing.
Also, people that you can help be successful as well, because it goes both ways, right?
I mean, reciprocal, man.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
I'd say one of the most valuable things you can do is help the right person get in the right position and get the right people to the right spots and help people in their careers.
Yeah. But let me ask you this.
Fortifies. Yeah.
How do you know that you're helping the right person? Like, do I look for the right person to help? Or can I just help? Can I just help everybody?
That's a good question. I try to invest in everybody, and I look for character traits that help me identify people that I can plug into the right positions or expose to opportunity. That's kind of how my world works, man. Like in terms of me putting my name on people, there's actually a pretty small little group, but like in terms of the people that like I can, it's a small group that I'll put my name on, but I'm always trying to find those people with good character in my environment to push forward, because it's what you said is so 100% accurate. The more people you can push forward, it like fortifies your career, and it helps, your trajectory. I found that so many times.
Yeah, but then you're absolutely right. Like there is a difference in, hey, here's a couple resumes for you to look at. However, the third one, I know the guy, blah blah blah.
Character.
Like you're gonna put your name on him, right?
Right.
And you know the deal, right? If you say, you ask me, hey, are you putting your name on any of these guys? You're like, no.
Disclaimers.
I'm just like, helping them along, right? Because you own them, right? You put your name on them, you own them, right?
I own them, yeah, man.
You own their successes and their mistakes as well, right? So.
Yeah, man. No, that's funny, because you'll have guys you're like, yo, this is a good dude. I can vouch for him. And then you'll have guys that like, these guys look really good, but I don't know them like that. You know what I'm saying? Disclaimer, friends, man.
Yeah, I don't know who I was talking with the other day, but they're like the difference between a good dude and a good guy. For me, there's a difference. Hey,
there is a difference, man.
He's a good guy. But you say somebody's
like
a good
friend
dude.
Zone. Yeah.
Exactly. You say good dude, that's you putting your name on the dude right there. You're like, he's a good dude. Oh yeah, so and so says you're a good dude. All right, you're in. Hey, he's a good guy. Oh, he's a good guy. All right.
That's real, man. That's real as heck.
Right.
I even felt that when you said it. Like, oh no, he's a good guy. Okay, he's a good guy. It's like friend zone. This is a good dude. This dude is like, yeah, I can put my name on him. That's awesome.
Exactly.
Man, proudest moment over the course of your career.
Oh, that's a good one. I think for me, what gives me the most pride is watching the transition in people that I've either worked with or trained or whatever, and then seeing their successes for whatever that is. Because I don't own that. That's on them, right? We give them the tools to be successful, right? But as we watch them take whatever tools you give them, and on their own, they execute accordingly, and they find in great spaces. To me, that gives me the most, I think, personal and professional satisfaction, is to watch that growth. I really enjoy that.
Heck yeah. No, I completely agree, man. It's like the ultimate kind of validation in some ways for the things that we're trying to contribute to people and things like that. The tools that we're, as educators, trying to contribute to folks, man. It's like, yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's good to go.
Yeah.
What would you say about the industry and the direction we're going? Is there anything you see coming up in the future that you'd want to say, or that guys should be aware of, or just predictions?
Yeah. So I think, by having been an instructor for quite some time, oftentimes I get cynical about the industry. And I would say that this year has proven me to be wrong, at least in cynicism. And I haven't been really cynical this year, which is kind of helpful, but because I've just seen, like, I'm usually, I tell people like, no, I can do this, I can do that. They drop the resume in the first 5 minutes, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, cool. That's all cool in the gang, man. Just show me and we're cool.
Right.
I treat myself as if I'm from Missouri, right? Just show me.
Just show me, man. Show me state. Yeah.
So having said that, I think with COVID impact, the industry has been kicked in the shins by a lot of people having to sit on the sidelines. And we saw a lot of people go after, everybody got FEMA certs, I think April, May, like people were looking at online education and free education. I would say the direction we're heading is, we need to be aware of cybersecurity. We need to focus on the holistic approach to security, not just the body, right? Exactly. Hey, I'm just a body guy. No, you need to be able to translate risk. You need to be able to speak in business terms. You need to be able to understand risk from a cybersecurity perspective. And you need to understand, risk globally and use tools to do so, not just go, well, I feel like this is what's going to happen. Right.
I'm finna Google some stuff.
Exactly. That might have worked prior to, but it's not going to work before. I mean, it's not going to work after. The next piece is that because of COVID's a new risk and a vulnerability. So whatever your personal political beliefs are, we have to address that risk accordingly, right? To be able to reduce that risk to ourselves and our clients. Because if we bring risk to the client, then we're not effective. Right.
Man, that's good stuff. I dig it. It's definitely time for like the evolution of a more holistic security practitioner, 100%, especially with this digital realm becoming what it is. Hanging out inside your client's back pocket is a whole bunch of vulnerability, and their behavior is going to probably have increased risks here and there. Because
I agree.
And that's just the game. That's the game we got to play now.
Yeah. And I would also say, take ownership of your role, right? We work in a very interesting industry in that, aside from childcare and usually like maybe pet care, nobody really tells you what to do or how to do your job other than in executive protection, right? So that can tend to be like, if you're a plumber, somebody comes over, hey, I need you to, unclog a toilet or re-pipe, run a pipe.
Plumb some stuff. I'm saying.
You need to plumb, right? It's a verb, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to be like, hey, I need you to do these 5 things. You're going to say, okay, awesome. And you're going to bang out. There it is. Hey, there you go. Have a great day.
Right.
When your principal turns to the HR person, they just say, hey, here, what do we have? What do we need? And then they get the advice. Same thing with finance, same thing with operations, right? But when it comes to protection, either your principal or people around your principal tell you how to do something, right? And we need to transition from that, which usually tends to get us to, if we can ask, can we have permission to do our job? Like we talked about at the beginning of the show, professionalizing will have them asking us versus, hey, here are your constraints always, right, in the role. And we need to elevate ourselves through education, through holistic security approaches, through being professional instead of just, you're the guy that stands there. And I think that's the next level protector.
Yeah, 100%. That's good stuff, man. Yeah. Getting away from the mother may I attitude.
Yep.
Right.
Do you mind if hey, do your job? I pay you.
Yeah.
Do your
Can
job.
Yeah. What? Who would you nominate, man? Who do you think I should talk to next on the show?
Oh man, there's a lot of people.
Right.
I mean, there's so many people who are doing great things in the industry. It's really hard to come up with. You threw me with that one. Let me see.
Right, I'm gonna get Chuck. Right.
I was gonna say, Chuck. I mean, Chuck's doing great things because he's just had so much experience, right? And he's led, one of the largest teams, and one of the oldest corporate teams in the nation. I would say, if you haven't done it, maybe grab somebody who just graduated from a course or just graduated and look at what their perspective is and what they think is important, and then kind of have a conversation about that. Because I think as senior practitioners, we tend to think that we know the way and we know what's happening, and we won't know that until somebody tells us. Yeah. And I think there's a lot, two things. There's a lot of value in that for both parties. And then I think that we get surprised at how smart people are.
Yeah.
You know what I'd like to hear from? And I think I don't want to disappoint anybody. Devon Tate. I'd like to
Devon Tate. Yeah. I got connection with him. I can have him for sure.
I want to know because he stood up at the conference and was like, hey, I want to do this and I want to do that. He was hungry. He was hungry, right? So, and I know he's been doing a lot of things, and I think it would be cool to hear from him and hear his perspective.
Awesome. Yeah, he's busy. He's got like a whole junior protector thing going, and then he had he's doing self-defense stuff as well. He's got a martial. I've worked with him a couple times out here.
Did you?
Yeah, man. Good guy. He's working hard. He's trying to create something, and he's not accepting any limitations, which I value.
Really?
So heck
That's
yeah,
good.
man. Yeah,
that's
good dude.
And then I know you've talked to him already, but again, one of the guys we wanted to talk to about was James Hamilton again.
Yes.
Just his focus on, being comfortable with violence, right? That comes back to those base skills that we focus on is, and we just go, yeah, that's just part of the role. How do we do that? What does that look like? Right. And I thought that was awesome with him.
100%. No, that's like, I don't know. That's one of the things that I keep hearing that keeps on popping up is the whole, a lot of these trainers that I'm talking with, I'm like, what's the biggest issue with training? Biggest thing you guys have trouble working around people when it comes to training or keeping them, into it. They're like, people have an aversion to violence naturally, and they have an aversion to it. They just have an aversion to it. Well, we have to study it, not because we get off on it, but because we need to understand it so we can deal with it effectively. So, people might come and see something and then they just run back into their hole after the training op. And, they're like, well, I went to the class, it's like, no, you kind of need to get inoculated to it a little bit. That's why I post what I post is there's like these real world combative engagements and like kind of microdose people with trauma that helps their brain accept the reality. They're like, nah, sitting in your car without locking the door is a bad move.
Right.
And going ahead, like with this hard skills intensive, we put two dudes in a really enclosed space and make them fight each other for a gun. And it was just really interesting watching people's reactions to, knowing knowing that violence was coming. I'm going to get into a fight right now.
Did you guys use any heart rate monitors or anything?
Man, we should have, man. No, we had some simunitions and the right helmets and some MMA gloves and
that'd be interesting perspective though, right? So like you put heart monitors on everybody, and then you choose two people and put them in the car, and then you watch what everybody else's heart rates do as they go into it, right? And likely the person with the lowest heart rate is the one that you need to be really scared of.
That's like, the guy.
Oh, is that what we're doing? All right, let's do it.
Yeah. It's a slow Tuesday,
That's
the guy, man.
Yeah,
that's good stuff.
That's awesome.
And that's the guy that's inoculated. That's the guy we need to be. That's the guy that's going to be able to make good decisions. Probably.
Right. And then, man, I really don't remember who it was, but I think we talked about it a couple of times with some of the guests is the most important thing of that. And I know Craig Douglas talks about this too, is don't be in that situation, right? This is to get us through and test us if we happen to find ourselves in that situation. But like you said, lock your doors. Don't be in that situation, right? Make sure that you're not in that situation, that you'd have to worry about it. And that's the important piece too, is not being in this situation and watching everything unfold to go, time to go before before you find yourself in a shit sandwich situation.
Yep. 100%. That's 90% of what we should be doing as protectors. That evasion is where it's at. Habit. Well, favorite quote, mantra.
Oh,
yeah. They always go, leave your brain the second I ask this question.
No. I think the one as of late is why put off to tomorrow what you can do today.
Okay.
Right. And I think as we try to be, try to fill our space, fill our time, that's really, for me, that's really what I have tried to focus on, because it hits on all, for me, it hits on all fronts, right? Work, family, time, effort, right? Like if it talks about being present as well, like, oh, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. It helps you prioritize. And, I used to be the guy that was running around like this with my phone and with kids and family and and always focus on something else. It does. If you spend quality time on things, it can really help you impact people that are important. And, right, wrong, or different, your job is important at times, but your family is important, and what you do with them, you impact them all the time. So ignoring them can be an impact as well, right? For the job. So one's more important than the other. Just helps you prioritize.
No, I couldn't agree more, man. I've the feedback I've gotten from my wife is just a lot of like, when you're here with us. Yeah. And that makes the time more valuable, even though there's not a lot of it. It's just, they notice if you're present or not. And that, I think, makes that time well spent, you know, because I have also had those times where I was like, I just spent like all day with you guys yesterday. Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Like, yeah, but you were like everywhere doing, you know what I mean? Like, you weren't really here, you know, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, you
so
gotta be present.
Yeah, and you don't want to miss things when they're gone because you weren't paying attention while you had them.
Right.
Everything's gonna leave at some point, man. So
Right. Yeah.
it's good gouge.
And usually the work will still be there.
Yeah. Forever. Like, yeah, right. All right, good to go, man. How would you last couple questions, man? How would you like to be remembered, Chris?
Oh, that's a really good question. Because a lot of times we think that we have impact, right?
Yeah.
And we do or we don't, or whatever the case is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I guess I would like to be remembered as a contributor, had great impact, and in some way, shape, or form, you know, a good human.
Yeah.
You know.
Heck yeah.
That's it.
I'm the same way with the contribution one, man. That's big for me.
Yeah. Well, I think so. That becomes important to me because we often celebrate people's lives after they're gone, right? Which is really more about us than them. So I think celebrating people while they're alive becomes way more important because, like we talked about that being present piece, we always have excuses of when not to get together or when not to, you know, if you knew that today was the last day that you would be able to connect with somebody, would you change your schedule? Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say yes, but you know, a soccer game, you know, getting to do something low level or whatever usually is an excuse for us to not to connect. Right. Pre-COVID. If we do that over and over and over, suddenly life passes us by. And then we go, oh man, I really wish I would have just taken, you know, just some time to connect with that person, or at least tell them how much I appreciated them, or tell them what their impact on my life was. Yeah. And if we miss that, to me, that's a tragedy, right? So, so, you know, celebrating people while they're alive, I think I'd like to be remembered for that as well.
Awesome, man. No, that goes right back into that presence, man, being present. Mm-hmm. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Habit that makes you better that you think people should look at, maybe implementing into their lives. Better person, better protector.
So first off, I would say fitness, because it helps to reduce a lot of stress.
Yes.
Right? I mean, it helps you in your role specifically, but it also helps reduce stress, right? That'd be number one. And then number two, I would say kindness, which shouldn't be confused with niceness, right?
Okay.
Because if you're nice to somebody, you may not really tell them what they really need to hear, right? Not what you need to tell them, which is different, right?
Yeah.
What you need to tell them, that might be about you, but what they need to hear is about them. So being nice means, at least from my perspective, is that you're just kind of telling them, okay, you're kind of blowing sunshine, right?
Just being nice. Yeah.
Just being nice.
Which is like a precursor to can be a precursor to a fight. You know what I'm saying? If you're being nice, it's like almost like it's like, you know, I'm just going to be nice to him, blah, 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 blah. It's like, there's no deeper valuable emotion there.
Right. Right. It's just kind of like, you know, I'm just going to let it go. And you could provide impact, right? Which would, like you said, could lead to a fight. If we don't tell people what they need to hear at times, they'll just continue down a path that, you know, either breaks you apart, or you just kind of start ignoring them, or it's very destructive. Exactly. But if you're kind, you can tell people in a way that if they trust you, you know, it comes out in different ways. Like, again, I refer to Josh. He's like, we were talking about something. I said, I would hope that somebody would tell me that I'm messing up, you know? Yeah. And he goes, yeah, for me, it would go like, hey, you're effed up, fix yourself. And I would go, you know, but from us knowing each other and trusting each other, I would look at myself and go, cool, how do I need to fix that? Right. That's being kind. He's telling me where I have a deficiency. Right. If he was being nice, he'd be like, hey man, great job. And then he'd be like, you're an idiot, and talk to other people and tell them how I was jacked up. Right. That's being nice. So it's how you deliver the information becomes important. Right. And then of course, how the person perceives it as well. And initially, you know, a lot of people don't like to be told that they're maybe not meeting the mark, but if it makes you better, you got to be able to look at the message at times, you know?
Yeah. And value it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
No, that's good stuff, man. That's good stuff. The difference between nice and kind, man. That's good stuff.
Yeah, it's important.
Heck yeah. I've never really consciously made that distinction. What are you up to these days, and where can people find you, brother?
Wow. Okay. So these days I'm planning, right? So, did a lot of doing a lot of teaching for naval advisors, doing some consulting and teaching at ESI, which is awesome. Spend a lot of time with veterans, and they've got a great platform out there. Right now, I'm doing a lot of planning for next year. We're kind of doing some new things with the podcast. Going to start transitioning to video and doing a lot of great things. So you can find us at protectiontalk@outlook.com. Man, I haven't had to say that for a while because we had it in the
built into the show notes.
Built into the
intro,
show,
outro. Heck yeah.
That's right. That's right. So protectiontalk@outlook.com. I'm on LinkedIn at Chris Storey. You can find me at Chris at Anomaly Management, Chris at Enabled Advisements, Chris Storey at Enabled Advisements. So pretty much anywhere that you can just plug my name in all the platforms, pretty easy to find.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks so much. This interview's been I knew it'd be, great, but dude, your wealth of knowledge, man. I was able to just shoot these questions at you, and every single time was wow. It was like every response was very chewy and meaty and had substance to it, man. So this is a packed conversation.
Oh, good.
That's
I'm
awesome,
glad.
Brother.
I blacked out for a second. I know what I said. I was just like Leroy Jenkins, just do it live.
Leroy.
Right?
That's what's up, man. I appreciate it.
That's right.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks so much once again. Thanks for everything you said about, me and what I'm trying to do here, and the encouragement and the support and all that stuff. And I'm glad we're connected, brother. Looking forward to doing some cool things.
Yeah, same here. Same here. Thank you so much for having me. Honored to be a guest, Byron. You are doing great things, and thank you so much for including us.
Awesome.
I say us as our podcast, right? Chuck and I.
Yeah, man. We'll get Chuck in here next and chop it with him as well.
Awesome.
Outstanding. All right, brother. Thanks for your time. We'll talk soon.
Hey, thank you. All right, bye.
Boom.
Yo, if you're a private security professional wanting to take your game to the next level, go to executiveprotectiontrainingday.com to check out my personal success package for private security professionals. Check it out, executiveprotectiontrainingday.com. And remember, y'all, hard skills do save lives, but soft skills get you paid. Boom. Boom. And to support this podcast, go to executiveprotectionlifestyle.com and contribute to our Patreon account. That Patreon account is what helps me make this podcast possible, contributing to this brand, what we're doing here, making it so that I can bring better guests on, making it so that we can plan more events and just expand the contribution to the private security industry, and also to making America a safer place. Do whatever you can, contribute whatever you can, because it makes all of these things possible. Thanks for those contributions. Yo, and before we go, I got a shout out to the sponsors, starting out with Primary Weapon Systems, PWS. They truly are the evolution of the rifle. Use Byron for 10% off. Grayman and Company, the most comfortable tactical suits in the game. Use Byron for 10% off with them. Ballistic Theory. You're going to start seeing a lot of stuff with me in Ballistic Theory because they got good ammo for good prices. Use Byron for my discount with those guys as well. Last but not least, Executive Protection Institute. Hey, go check them out and get your executive protection education on. Until the next podcast, this is Byron Rodgers, protector by nature and by trade. Out. Boom.